Hey guys, welcome to the Emergence Podcast, a podcast that aims to empower fitness professionals through candid conversations about building sustainable minds, bodies, and businesses. I'm your host, Laura Gunder, ex-professional ballet dancer turned classical Pilates instructor based in New York City, sharing my insights from a decades-long journey navigating an industry with no set path to success. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hey guys, welcome back to the Emergence Podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today we have Emma Baker, based in New York City. Emma actually listened to Emergence and she reached out to me, and she has a podcast of her own called Star Girl, which I kind of want to talk more about. But I would love to kind of know a little bit more about your background and how you got into personal training and kind of your relationship to movement.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad that we are connected now.
Yeah.
So yes, as opposed to maybe all of the guests that you've had thus far, I am very, very new to working in fitness. So I just started taking one-on-one personal training clients like not even 2 years ago. Prior to that, I had been certified as a yoga instructor, but I wasn't really using it or hadn't been for at least 5 years. And so it's a really recent like career pivot to decide like, no, I want to work with bodies. I want to work with people in this way. And yeah, left my corporate job and totally like new era for me. And so, yeah, happy to talk, in so much more depth about the work that I do right now, which is primarily one-on-one personal training and like strength training at a gym capacity. Though I also do teach Pilates, and like I said, I am certified to teach yoga as well. But what really piqued my interest about Emergence was because having just launched myself into this whole new industry and lifestyle, I wasn't really hearing stories from other fitness professionals about like actually how challenging it is to make that adjustment in a career capacity, even though like you yourself ostensibly love movement or you wouldn't be doing this. And so, I had all these ideas about like what my life as a fitness professional would be. And then it happened. And I was like, wait, how did my entire life just blow up? Like, I'm so stressed. My sleep is crazy. My weight is fluctuating. My acne is flaring up. Like my own body and movement practices kind of, were way less consistent and just more all over the place. That is all to say, I've gotten so much out of your podcast and just hearing from all of these like lifelong, really, really studied people just to be like, yeah, that's real, and like how much more grounded you have to get um, in your own practices and just the way you live your life. So, anyways, that's a little bit about that.
Amazing. Well, let's talk a little bit more about you and your background and kind of how you came
Mhm.
into deciding to be a personal trainer and your kind of relationship to movement, because I feel like it's very personal, and why we get into fitness is usually because people did sports, they were dancers, or like they just, there's something about it. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so I grew up a dancer, a ballerina. I grew up training at Pacific Northwest Ballet, which I know you danced at professionally years later. So wild connection there.
Small
Um,
world.
but yeah, for real. But I stopped like classical ballet training in like mid high school, and then I still did like modern and hip hop all through college. But I think the moment that I left ballet really was like a marked shift in my relationship to my body. I think that was like very hard emotionally to let that go, to realize I wasn't going to be a professional, just a lot of things that came up. And so from that point, when I stopped doing ballet up until the end of college, I really didn't have like much conscious relationship with movement or my body at all. Yes, I still danced. I like went on runs. Like I was like relatively active. But overall, I would say that was a really unhealthy period of my life. My senior year of college, my boyfriend at the time introduced me to powerlifting. And like it's kind of sounds like I'm lying when I say like overnight everything changed, but that's really how it felt that I finally had something that was as like formal, I want to say, as ballet training. And it really like it just triggered this amazing response, like psychologically and then obviously physiologically as well. I had never been introduced to a movement style that, since ballet, that was so kind of like classical in form and required this real like discipline. And, for the first time, I had to like schedule my workouts and schedule my rest and watch like the metrics of my lift go up. And it just felt like really kind of straightforward, but also formal, as I said. So that in itself was a watershed moment just to reconnect to a formal movement practice at all. And I was very dedicated, just like as a gym goer for the next, like, let's say, like over 5 years, 5 to 8 years. I belonged to a powerlifting gym in New York for a while, and yeah, so that was a big part of just like my personal life. But I was working as a freelance writer and then a little bit in tech, and it was always just kind of like my personal outlet. Um, in terms of your original question about becoming a personal trainer, I injured my back. I like slipped a disc and back squatting, and I feel like that injury in and of itself, my first major injury since like Achilles tendonitis when I was a, high schooler. And the first time that as an adult, I had to like really take responsibility for like my rehab. I worked with an amazing personal trainer, Dr. Cameron Yuen, who I know you also know. And his kind of like presence alerting me to the ways in which I had been training that really neglected, in my case, like my core and my hips and my glute strength. I was just like, whoa, there's like so much about the body that I'm fascinated by. I want then the relationship I had with him, kind of being this like sage leader guiding me through, was like, okay, there's something here. And I was also just really inspired by him because he clearly had work that he really, really loved, and I was not in that place in my life. And so I remember a conversation where I was like, complaining about my job, and he was like, "Oh, well, how much longer will you stay there?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna wait like 9 months until I get my bonus or something." And he was like, "9 months is a long time to be miserable." And I was like, like, oh, okay, like point taken. And so yeah, I quit my job and started working out of an independent gym in my neighborhood that is run by a husband and wife who were just really generous, letting me get started with like not really that much experience, and just have slowly in the past year and a half ish built my client base from there.
Wow, that's so amazing. I love hearing people's stories and journeys to getting to sort of personal instruction. And I love love Cameron and Katie. I feel like they're just like the toughest love kind of couple who are just like, I'm gonna tell you how it is. And you're kind of like, oh shit. Okay. But I wanted to kind of talk about a little bit more zooming back to kind of your ballet experience, because I feel like ballet
Mm,
sets the foundation for so much discipline and positive and negative kind of connotations to how we work. And
hmm
sort of how we approach kind of life. I feel like because you're an artist, right? And you said you were a writer, and I think I read that you went to NYU for writing, right? So I feel like
hmm
art seems to be such a part, and you have your Stargirl podcast, and art seems to be such a part of who you are as a person. And I want to kind of know a little bit more about how you were feeling when you were dancing and kind of what really kind of the feelings you were going through when you decided to stop. And
mm,
because sometimes I feel like when we leave something that is such a part of our identity, I had this problem too, dancing for so long, and then you're not Emma the dancer anymore. It's like I'm just Emma. Like,
hmm
who am I? Kind of without this thing that's been associated with me for so long. So I'd love to sort of hear more about sort of the backstory of your ballet journey and kind of how that kind of shapes who you are now in terms
hmm
of your coaching and just kind of your approach to life.
Oh yeah, I love talking about dance. Thank you for asking about it.
I think it's important because it shapes so much of who you are.
Totally. Yeah. And it's funny because I've only just very recently kind of re-inhabited that identity even now as a dancer. And
Mhm.
it feels really good. And it also, inhabiting it myself has like somehow mysteriously in the universe connected me to more dancers as well, or former
Mhm.
dancers. So it's really lovely. Anyways, to your question, yeah, was always like a dancer and nothing else all growing up. Like I started when I was 2. It was like immediately my thing. I was doing it like as intense as I possibly could,
Mhm.
from tiny little like baby tutu vibes all the way all the way up. But in terms of deciding to leave, like I just frankly like didn't have the lines. I didn't have the feet. I didn't have the turnout. And at the time that I started going on point, which was like what, 10 or 11 years old, like already in my like end of year conferences, I was getting kind of like the yellow flag of like, okay, you have great stage presence and you like are very disciplined and blah blah blah, but like you don't have the feet and you don't have the turnout. And as you know, in terms of classical ballet, like those are kind of hard lines, you know?
Mhm.
And I don't even know. I mean, I was so young at that point. I don't know if I had like a conscious ambition to like be a professional dancer. Nevertheless, it was the thing that I did, the thing that I loved, like very much my identity. And so that was very, really, really hard. And so I think the transition out of like classical ballet actually kind of happened naturally because I was at the same time taking ballet and jazz and hip hop, and I loved those styles as well. So I could kind of like slowly off ramp and find other
Mhm.
studios there that were like a better fit for me. But super challenging for sure on an identity level. And like I look back at that really like chaotic time in my life and I'm like, I didn't have the self-awareness or the maturity to like deal with it elegantly or like name it. But I'm like, of course, you were going through this like, huge identity crisis as this like, 18-year-old or whatever of like, what's my thing? What am I good at? And not having another outlet for that. Writing was something that I also do love and just kind of, yeah, speaking and thinking through ideas. And I was an English major in college. And then, as you said, I went to NYU for a writing program. And then I have my podcast now. And that filled or it's a real part of me, I guess I would say, but it did not like fill the void of dance or of movement. And so it makes a lot of sense to me in hindsight that I always had, or once I found weightlifting at least, that was like a really almost spiritual practice for me to still like have a movement practice that was quite formal and disciplined and kind of triggered a kind of ballet vibe, even though it's a totally different environment and like look and feel. But I think that, you know, kind of took that place or like satisfied that like existential need to be moving my body in kind of like formal, like really almost like monk-like fashion that obviously studying ballet is also.
Yeah, I feel like in training people, I said this a lot. We've said this so many times in this podcast, but there is such a thing for like understanding the formal foundations of any exercise
Mhm.
modality or movement because yoga, has foundational exercises, strength training has very foundational exercises, Pilates, has a whole classical order and system. And I think something I feel like dancers love so much is that kind of systematic, kind of like
Yes.
lineage-esque approach to movement and sort of how these exercises have been passed down over time and just sort of the preservation of this kind of method and work and kind of how it's adaptable and really you can kind of go anywhere with these movements the more you
Mhm.
understand like the foundations and principles of it. It's kind of like infinite. And I think
Mhm.
probably for dancers it's so nice because it gives you that structure and rigidity, but it also gives you so much freedom as in strength training, which is a little bit different from dance because I feel like it's a little more rigid because you're doing this specific choreography, you're doing these specific roles, and you can be creative, but in fitness, it's like you're kind of the captain instead of like the choreographer or the director. So I feel like it gives you this more autonomous kind of feeling in terms of a relationship to movement, maybe, or just having that grasp on it.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And also, I think, at least to talk about like weightlifting, just while we're here,
Mhm.
like the body mechanics, barring like crazy injury or something, are available to all different types of bodies. Whereas in like classical ballet, it's like, okay, I could, as I said, like at a certain point, like I just couldn't make the lines, right?
Mhm.
And so there's something about the formal systematic foundations of the movement and kind of the body organization and the body mechanics, but then it's also like it's available to you. And if you just take the time to learn how to move well and to align yourself and understand your own anatomy, like anyone can achieve that. So I think that felt really, it made me feel like more triumphant. Whereas like my exit from ballet was kind of like, okay, sad. Like I can't get my leg up to my head or whatever.
No, I love that you said that. I feel like that's like the any great coach should be able to do that for their clients. It's there is
Right.
always an option. If you're a good coach, it's never the client. There's always an exercise or there's always a movement pattern that that client can achieve. And I
Hmm.
think that you said that that's amazing because I think that it should be accessible at any point in your life. Injuries, whatever you have going on. I think that's like a staple of a good coach is to be able to understand that and take accountability for training themselves and to building more knowledge in terms of like how
Mhm.
can I best serve my clients and
Yeah.
make sure that they are able to achieve those progressions regardless of whatever injuries or maybe things that might be holding them back from. So that's cool that you said that.
Mhm. Yeah, and in my experience, not with everybody, but most people seem to like really crave that education as well about like kind of systems and progressions and modifications. And it's cool to see people make the connections of like, oh, so like this movement is in the same category as this movement, right? And I think, especially for people who don't have at least as like systematic and rigorous of a dance background, but maybe they played sports or whatever, but they weren't really in tune with like movement patternings.
Right.
It seems like actually they're really excited to learn them and be like, oh, push movements. Okay, this is everything that's under that category. And so it's cool to do that kind of conceptual, like systematic education along with the actual, like, physical work.
Yeah, totally. I think that's just I love that moment in the room when your client like lights up. It's like a light bulb goes on. You're
Yes,
like, oh, and you're like, yes, that's it. And it's just
totally,
like a really fun
totally.
moment for everybody. And that really is like what keeps them coming back, I think. And that's what builds those close relationships because it's like
Mhm.
it's like your young child. You're like, yes, you got it. I'm so proud of
Totally.
you.
Totally, to have them feel like, oh my gosh, this is brilliant. We've been doing all these building blocks that led us to this thing. And it's like,
Right.
exactly, So it's really cool.
And now, how long have you been a personal trainer now? So about a year now?
A little more. February 2024 is when I had started with my very first client. So yeah, like a year and a half.
And how has like your first year been going? Because I would love to hear, because I feel like, yes, we've had so many like very seasoned
Hmm.
coaches on here. So I would love to hear sort of about and kind of let the listeners like listen in on like, I know a lot of people or some people are starting out on just really what's like the reality for you, an instructor in New
Yeah.
York City.
Okay, so in terms of like the actual work that is like the client facing that one-on-one time, the actual sessions, um, obviously it's not like a complete breed, but I found pretty quickly that like I actually do really love what this work is. I love my time in sessions, like let's say like 99% of the time, unless there's like a random attitude or something. But I think that was like really a sign from the universe, like, okay, you're meant to be here now if you are for the first time in my life, like at work, air quotes, like in total presence with this person. I loved the intimacy of it. I loved the problem solving. I loved kind of having to like ride out the tough moments where it's like, I don't know, something that everybody hates, like reverse lunges or something, And it's like,
Mm.
yep, it's going to be a long set and it's going to suck and your form's going to want to break down. And I'm here with you and I'm counting your reps and like, okay, you owe me one more or whatever. So that line connection has been really great in terms of like my overall like lifestyle. So I mentioned at the beginning that I also teach Pilates, and I've heard you talk about this as well. Just the running all over the city is crazy. Like I truly feel so nuts some days. I have my big bag with like multiple changes of clothes, makeup bag, skincare, water bottle, like snacks. Like you just feel nuts. And I think like sure it's like unglam, but it's also just feels kind of so hectic. And I'm sure also you've experienced this if you're not still. Every week is different, right? You work so hard to like find your set schedule, and then inevitably there's cancellations and changes, and someone's running late, and someone's kid is sick. And I think just absorbing on like an organizational level
Mm.
everybody else's organizational mess and stress around that has probably been the biggest ongoing challenge, being able to, yeah, absorb it without it not wait and trying not to let it knock me off course. And then also um, being able to like pivot on a dime.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. Does that resonate with you?
No, 100%. I mean, I still think that happens to everybody, but For me, luckily enough, I feel like I run around less now because I think I've been
Mm.
doing this enough. That's definitely
Mhm.
it gets better for people
Okay.
listening.
Yeah.
But yeah, the first year you're kind of just like you got to take everybody and anybody, and you're kind of at the mercy of the people. But I think for me, at least, remembering that I'm trying to be more grateful, I think. And sometimes
Mm.
I try to think about zoom out and just be like, I chose to do this, and this is a part of the business. And it's a part of any job, really. I think people forget that. I think we're in this culture of like everything's so instantaneous, and people think that people
Mhm.
just get everything right away. And sometimes it's slow and you have to put in some work for a couple of years, which I'm sure you know from being a dancer. I think anybody who has gone through any kind of very like, rigid, disciplined movement form, art form, sports, academic kind of pursuit understands
Mhm.
that it's not going to happen right away. And there is going to be a bit of sacrifice and work in the beginning. But I think that having that kind of sense of understanding that this is temporary, if you're like strategic in terms of how you're kind of seeing the trajectory of where your career is going to go, or how you're kind of thinking about the next 2 years, be like, I think I can do this for a year. And honestly, with my energy, and it's like in the next 2 years, okay, let me be a little more strategic in sort of building a schedule or building a set of clients based in a very concentrated area. So I won't have to run to the Upper East Side, the West Village, then I'm in Brooklyn, then I go back. And I think it just takes a little more strategy than people kind of understand,
Mhm.
which is sort of what I love kind of about talking to all these people on Emergence is that they had to strategize and you kind of have to figure it out. But for you, at least, what are some of the things that you kind of have implemented for yourself as a new instructor who's running around? I heard you have like snacks and water. That's great because some people just don't eat. So, what else do you have?
Wow. Yes. So actually, like just in this season, in this fall season, I'm like a little, no, I'm like a lot more kind of organized, I guess, or just like putting more guardrails up. For
Mm-hmm.
instance, like I just don't take clients on Thursdays and because of like my Pilates teaching schedule and whatever other stuff in my life. And that felt really good to just be like, okay, that's my day where I don't take clients. And even just having that one morning that is not like waking up at the crack of dawn and rushing out the door and all of that has felt really good. And to kind of connect with the feeling of like almost like enoughness with that choice, rather than the like scarcity brain that's like, no, but if you block off one single morning, then you can't have maximum clients or something, and not just, or I want to just be in trust of like, no, that's okay. Like you need that for your sanity. That's going to allow you to show up better. And there will be people to fill your spots, not on that specific morning, So that's like one win of late. Um, I don't know if this is really a hack. This is probably just like obvious for everybody, but really prioritizing my sleep. Like really just being like, okay, yeah, now you're getting up X amount of time earlier than you used to when you had a corporate job. Like, so you got to go to bed. You have to just like you can't socialize on the weeknights. You got to just go to bed. And that is like obviously you feel invincible when you're like properly rested.
It's amazing.
Um, this is kind of like a random silly one, but identifying the places in New York, like in Manhattan specifically, where between appointments or teaching or whatever, where I go. Like these are the cafes where I go. They have good Wi-Fi, they have like food that I want, coffee that I like, it's not too cold, whatever the situation is. Just minimizing the decisions in those awkward, like 90 minutes, 2.5 hours, whatever, where you're like, what should I do right now? And just being like, nope. I always go here and I sit down and I do this admin work and I get this tuna wrap and then we're off, has been like surprisingly really, really useful.
No, honestly, those are amazing things that take a lot of people a long time to sort of understand. I want to go to two things. First, I want to talk about what you were talking about, a kind of embodiment and
Mm,
feeling kind of that enoughness. Because what I've been noticing is like a lot of people, I'm not trying to project, maybe I am, but from my friends and stuff, a lot of people get into fitness because they really went through something and they get a lot of energy and passion out of helping people achieve something, feel like they're seen, feel like they're reaching a goal, and it makes them happy. But on the flip side, some of us, I'm like more of a sensitive kind of person who has trouble and has struggled with like worthiness and like feeling like, oh God, like if I take a day off, like I'm like not working hard enough, and it's just like letting yourself be. So I kind of want to touch on that. And then I love the other thing you said was about mitigating your decisions. I was actually thinking about this earlier in terms of we get decision fatigue, like we're coaches. And I actually really was writing about it earlier. Then I love that you said that because it is, we're making decisions for people all day for like 8+ hours, 6+ hours. And I think we forget that sometimes you just go home and you're just so out of decisions, you're just staring at the wall. But I think that that's an amazing thing you pointed out. And I really love that you said that is to mitigate decisions and sort of you're creating controlledness within the chaos for yourself.
Right.
So you have those kind of benchmarks and points where you're just like A, B, and C. And even though my day is hectic, I can like anchor myself in this. So that
Yes.
kind of ties me back to the embodiment and sort of how did you kind of get to that place of feeling that worthiness or kind of like, or at least trusting yourself or whatever in the universe that like clients will come and I will be okay if I give myself a day. Cause I think that takes a really long time, honestly, for newer coaches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's such a good question. Couple things come to mind. First of all, I think um this is probably not what you like originally wanted to hear, but I think I had some not some. I definitely had some imposter syndrome or just fear getting started with this because I'm not a person who like studied exercise science in school. I wasn't like a student athlete. Like I think a lot of kind of common backgrounds that people come to personal training and strength training from, like I didn't have. And so I was really aware that like I was starting like from level one as a coach, and I just didn't have like from a kind of scientific research point of view, I didn't have the knowledge that a lot of other people had. And I, certainly knew other strengths of mine, but I was just aware of that. And so I actually think connecting to that made it easier for me to just like start really, really slow and be like, at first I had one client. I had one client for over 3 months, and then I had two clients, and then I had three clients. And I really was just taking it very slow as a so like you couldn't even call that like a part-time gig, right? That was like such a small part of like my life and the income that I was making while I was still working contract jobs and running my podcast and all of the things. And then slowly the balance of time spent personal training and just teaching fitness in general has grown and grown. But yeah, paradoxically that like awareness of my newness allowed me to just like take it slow and be like, look, if I'm not grounded, if I'm not feeling confident in um the information that I'm tendering, then like it's going to be bad for everybody. So that was one piece. And then I think I went through a period of earlier this year, like the first like 5 months of 2025, I was getting certified in Pilates, and then it's like all of the practice hours and all everything that goes into like a new certification, and it extremely stressful, and I was taking on way more than I could, and my own health just like started to tank. And this was actually the right around when I first found your podcast, as I spoke about at the beginning. All of the things that you touched on about your own experience, weight fluctuation, like hair loss, like crazy sleep, crazy, crazy stress, not being present with my husband, not having any time for like socializing or my family, and just being like, okay, well, this is not what it is. There's a certain amount of like stress that I expect from diving into something new, but like I know, I'm that feeling, which I'm sure you've experienced too, of like showing up to your class and it's like 90 seconds before you were just like a ball of nerves freaking out on the sidewalk. And it's like, I don't want to be bringing this energy. Like, this is not serving anyone. And so that helped me to just like scale back, be realistic with the owner of the studio I worked for, being like, I think I need to take like I can't teach this much, and pausing taking new clients. So yeah, in that sense, I kind of had to learn the hard way of being, whoa, I just got so far away from myself. Like this is not what it's about at all. Like I can't really, I'm not like a model for the students. I'm not like living out my own advice. So
That's amazing though that you have that self-awareness because I think some people go to too many extremes. I think all instructors will inevitably face some sort of that. Hopefully not to the deepest extreme, but I think everybody gets to the point of being like, this could not possibly be it. And
Yeah.
like you're like, I don't feel alive. And my job
Hmm.
is to be lively. And
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
like a zombie. But
Totally.
yeah.
Totally. Or if it's like interfering with like my ability to be present in a one-on-one context, I think it's easier because you're so locked in. But I think I had just noticed a couple of times myself like kind of going on autopilot teaching and just being like, this is like so not okay. Like this is not the reason I got into this. This is not what anybody's here for. Like, I need to have at a bare minimum the like energy and like, you know, life behind my eyes to be present as I'm teaching. That's like
You want to
number
be have
one.
like that vitality to give. But
Yes.
I think one of the main things I'm getting from what you're saying that I think is super important for the listeners to kind of that we reiterate is the fact that you really were very aware of yourself and kind of advocated for yourself and kind of you really like knew your stopping point and listened
Mm.
because I feel like sometimes we just push past those points and it is very dependent. I will say I'll try to play devil's advocate because sometimes people don't have a choice, but to teach as many people as
Hmm.
possible for a little bit until they maybe create some more financial stability. But I think if you do have the ability or have the ability at some point, pulling back and focusing on quality over quantity, whether that's in your clients, your schedule, or just maybe you're over socializing, but I think having that awareness to really protect yourself and slow down. I love that you
Hmm.
said that. I think this is a really fast paced industry. And I think people think that the faster you go, the more things are going to happen, the sooner they're going to happen, the more opportunities and more clients. But it actually is more detrimental because the quality of what you're doing
Hmm.
and the quality of your own health will probably regress. So I think that was really
Totally.
important that you said that. I really like that you said that.
Yeah, and I mean the rushing, it's like relevant advice for so many pieces of your day as a trainer and a coach. Like I was just listening to your podcast earlier and you were talking with someone about like just getting up 10 minutes earlier and the drastic difference that has on like you getting out of the house, you arriving to the gym or the studio, like you being there early and like grounded and like focused and prepared to then receive your client. And then that session is grounded and focused and connected, like
Yeah.
there's just such a snowball effect. And so, and then into the sessions themselves, like just this morning I was with someone and like we're starting a new plan this week and she's like super pumped up. We want to learn all the new motions. And it's like, I'm looking at the clock and it's like, okay, we're not going to get to some things. And it's better to just like not rush, do the full set and rep scheme of this thing you just learned, and we can learn the next thing next week. We don't need to like get so like overly jazzed, right? And it's like, it's sweet to be that excited, but like let's just like stay grounded. I think that like yeah, I keep saying the word grounded, but it is really like the thing that I try to connect to the most is like I need to be grounded to get my clients grounded. Like this is exercise should be enlivening, yes, but more than anything, like grounding work.
I think also let's talk on that because we work in New York City and everybody here is so uptight. It's like a bunch of type A people, which I love. But
Yeah.
I think that I can see a shift actually in my clients. I've noticed kind of in terms of like patterns and the shift in terms of the fitness industry, like post COVID, I think people are looking for more of an grounding and anchoring
Mm.
experience. They want to work hard, but I think there's more science and data and research, and people want to go to coaches who know what they're talking about, who are certified, who can progress them in a like very progress them properly and not force
Mm.
them into positions and make them feel like they can't achieve things because let's be honest, like it's got a very ungrounding time we're in.
Mm.
And I think that being a grounding presence in somebody's day for that 50, 45 minutes you're teaching is actually going to serve you your business so well. I think we underestimate the importance of our energy and having a grounding presence and being a calm person that
Mhm.
that person is coming to because God only knows what's going on in their day, like things are crazy. So I think it's really important. Do you have any specific practices that you kind of ground yourself in between clients, because sometimes I
Mm,
feel like for me, I'll just go to the bathroom and like take a couple of breaths and then come out when I'm ready.
totally. Yeah, it's such a good question also because like just the actual like physical space of your gym or studio like dictates like how much kind of what kind of beat you can take in those
Mhm.
like and then sometimes the session's running over and you actually have like 5 minutes or something. I used to in the scenario, which is so common, where one session is running over and then the next person is like there early and then suddenly 15 minutes turns to like two or whatever. I used to be like, oh, no problem, just like come over, whatever. And I've just started, if I see someone, I'm like see my next client, I will just say like, take your time. I'll be with you in a minute. And no one is ever like annoyed about that. No one's ever like, what? I'm here early. We should start now. Like people are respectful of your time if you like respect yourself enough to just draw that boundary. And so, yes, I will go to the bathroom. I will like refill my water bottle. I'll wash my hands. And then in the gym context, I will like take a look at their plan and like get out the first weights that we're using for like the first couple of exercises or something and just like set up their little station. And that not only like saves time in the session itself, because then it's like, okay, our first couple of things are right here for us, but it's also like care that I'm showing to them of like, I'm prepared for you specifically and what we're about to do together. And then that is also, even if it's 30 seconds for me to just like mentally like come back down to earth and like be like, okay, from Allison to Sarah, here we are, you know?
No, exactly. I think also what you said there I liked is you want to make the clients feel like you care about them. And I think sometimes when we are not grounded and we are not present, we can sort of, they could be taught, like I've had out of experience, sometimes if I feel like I'm just, it's like my eighth person, and I'm not really there, I'm like scrolling my phone and my client is talking to me. And sometimes I'll think and I'll be like, okay, well, this is extremely rude, like they're trying to like connect to you, like even if it's like but sometimes I think we need to be more aware of like our environment and be like, this person is trying to, like, they're a person, you're a person. There are boundaries, but I think that they are there for that connection. And some of your clients, like some people I feel like just kind of want to hang out
Oh,
because you know
definitely.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, of course there's boundaries. Like I don't text my clients. Some people I do, but like some people I'm like, I'm not texting them all the time, all day about everything. But
Mhm.
there's certain clients, you're closer with. But I think we need to also kind of be aware of like how we receive them and how they leave us,
Yeah.
which, because sometimes when they come in, like I've noticed when I was younger and I was more like, I wasn't confident. I was like, I was scared of them, even though they're my
Yes.
clients. Like I wouldn't
Totally.
make eye
Totally.
contact with them, but I was about to teach them for the next 15 minutes. And I would kind of be like, hi, just like evade eye contact. I think that comes with confidence. But now I'll be like, hi, and I'll say goodbye,
Yeah.
So they like feel seen when they walk in and feel like goodbye, like thank you for the session.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you see some crazy stuff at the gym though. Like not, the some trainers are so checked out and like I think because I was like so new and so nervous, I was like extra like I don't know, professional or something, almost to
Right.
maybe a corny degree with my first initial clients. But then I see that behavior of like people like literally like on TikTok or something while their client's doing a set or just like
Oh no.
not even like who know? I mean, just there's some really Yahoo behavior, really Yahoo behavior at the gym. But I think anytime I see that or anytime I take a class and you can tell that the teacher's just going through the motions, I really register that because it feels so bad. And the like the like snarky side is like, what? I've spent money on this. But then it's also a real like gut check, like you do not want to give this experience to someone, because I'm like, I'm not going back to that teacher. They were like checked out. No way.
No, I think that's really, I think we need to experience sort of unprofessional teachers
Yes.
and coaches so we can get a benchmark of what not to do
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
retention at least, because I know that those teachers exist and I know that they're not booked and busy because they're sitting around more than other people. Like, to be honest,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's great, but if you really want to be successful in this industry, you have to be so multifaceted and dynamic in what you have to offer your clients. Not only you have to be super, like versed in your modality, but you also have to have amazing communication skills. You
Mm,
have to have also understand human psychology. You have to like also understand how to care for yourself, like be a
yeah.
parent to yourself almost, because like we said earlier, if you're not taking care of yourself, there's no way you're going to be able to, your brain's going to be able to fire all those other things to be there for your client. And
Hmm.
I feel like that's such a hard kind of, I think that's what I'm struggling with right now. Is I was talking to my mom and I was like, wow, like I'm really an adult. It's like the fact that you have to take care of your own vessel and body throughout the day, and then we're in charge of so many people.
Hmm.
Do you
Yeah.
have like specific routines, I guess, in terms
Mm.
of like your work-life balance? Because you seem very regimented and dedicated, but I think you can't really live a proper life if you're not balancing it with other activities outside of other, even if it's just other movements. But I think we all need grounding practices that remind us that we're more than just a fitness instructor. So what are those to you?
Yeah. Well, actually on the movement side, just having for me it's a yoga studio that is not someplace that I teach, that is not someplace where I'm gonna like run into clients has felt
Mhm.
really good. I'll like work out like in a like strength training context at the gym where I work out and or where I work, excuse me. And so I'm running into clients all the time. Like my boss, who's the owner of the gym is there. So it's still like that whatever. I just take that. I just accept that. Like I love this gym.
Mhm.
I love the people who are there. I'm gonna work out there. It's gonna kind of feel like work. That's fine. But having a like belonging to a separate studio that is like just like pure Emma as a like paying customer feels really good. So that's great. Um, and I mean, I guess I've been surprised, though maybe I shouldn't be, at how much my social life has changed since starting to work in fitness. Um, I've been through periods where I was so overwhelmed and my schedule was so misaligned to like all of my friends who work 9 to 5s that I was like really lonely, like really, really lonely, just not socializing enough. And then I've been in periods where I'm like, trying to like gobble up all of the social energy and just feeling like, wait, this is actually not serving me in the way that I used to because now my life is different. And now, in my case, I have so much meaning in my work and my work is newly social, which wasn't the case when I had a corporate job. So I don't really have as much of a like social battery in the same way that I used to, where it would just be like every Wednesday, meet with a big group for like wine or whatever. It's like, okay, that's not like part of my life anymore. Um, and I don't know, but I think just that has been the most like non-linear, kind of like jagged, changing piece of my life that I'm kind of trying to figure out. I don't know if that answered your question, but
No,
in regard to like balance, air quotes.
No, I think it's just reshaping what balance is and reshaping. I think you have to be very aware of your energy and very aware of like what you need to get
Yes.
through whatever season you're in. So if you're like in a season that you're like building something new or like trying to, I don't know, put a new product out or open a studio or
Right.
building your clientele, I think I talk about this with my friends a lot, but I think it's just you have to understand your priority. And
Hmm.
I think
Yes.
that can be hard. And I think that's just part of being adult is knowing
Hmm.
what to prioritize. Like what's important, what's more important than something else.
Yeah, totally. And just staying connected to yourself and like what is feeding you and what is depleting you, and things that deplete you aren't necessarily bad, but just having the self-awareness to be like, okay, this thing that I've been habitually doing is draining and it's not in line with my like top 2 or 3 priorities. So does it need to be here right now? Like it can come back later if there's space for it, but
Exactly.
you know,
I think it's adaptability at its core. And I
yes,
think because we're so regimented as instructors, sometimes I think we get stuck and just be like, everything has to be A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then we forget that life isn't like that
mm-hmm,
and that we need to be more flexible with
mm-hmm,
kind of ourselves. I mean, there has to be like more rigidity and like structure within like our clients and their times and that those sort of things, because that's how we keep our business going. But I think there has to be a more fluidity and adaptability within ourselves and giving ourselves grace when we're too tired to maybe do like you had a really intense workout scheduled into your day and your body is like burned. And that's probably going to do you a disservice to do that. So maybe you decide to do some breath work or just go for a walk or maybe just like
Mhm.
chill. Because I know that teachers I teach with at Paradigm, like they work really hard. Everybody's really hardworking. They're really curious and into like bettering themselves. But sometimes people are tired. You've taught like 6 or 7 hours and it's like, do I work out? Do I not? And there's like
Mhm.
guiltiness. Do you ever like
Yeah.
experience kind of like that guilt of like being an instructor and like, oh my gosh, I didn't do my planned workout today? Like,
Absolutely. And I feel like it's okay. It's not a daily battle. It's definitely not a daily battle, but it's like there are multiple days a week where I finish all my clients and then I have my hour for my workout slotted and I just have to kind of like be with myself for a beat and be like, okay, Emma, are we gonna do it or are we gonna not? Like, and I think the guilt piece is so big because in instances where I say, okay, we're gonna not, but then I don't just like accept the fact that I made that choice, and then I'm like in a bad mood all day and I'm beating myself up. And then my husband comes home and he's like, "What's up?" And I'm like, "Oh, I didn't do my workout." And he's like, "Okay, like you made that choice, you know what I mean?"
yeah.
So, I think it's funny you were saying like as instructors we tend to be so rigid and then we need the fluidity. I actually think I came to it from the opposite problem where I was like too loosey-goosey, too like just letting everybody else's stuff like I would just bend to them, and then it's only been like really in this like most recent season of my life where I've been like, nope, okay, this is how I work, this is the type of people I work with, these are the times I'm available, and this is my price, and like building, like being a stronger column and not trying to shapeshift for everybody. But I have like I strength train less frequently per week now than before, but it's like that's what works, If I used to strength train 5 or 6 days and now I can only do three and then I go for a run and go to some yoga classes, great. And it's just like I think mentally accepting that and also getting over the fear of like I trained this one way for so many years. Is my body going to fall apart? Am I going to gain a bunch of weight? Is my mental health going to take a dive? And then just like changing it and be like, I'm okay. Like, I'm okay. It's not so fragile as I once thought it was.
And what do you mean by what's fragile? Just sort of just like your
Oh,
experience or just
yeah,
like how you feel?
I think it's more almost like the outcome of like I mean like my your body both like aesthetically and like strength wise. Not that I am training for any performance goals right now, but feeling like, oh, if I'm not in the gym 5 to 6 days a week, then I'm gonna like spiral out of control in some sort of way. Being like, no, it's okay. You can just train 3 days a week in this season. That makes sense for you, and like it will be okay.
I really, yeah, no, I like that you said that. I've been really into this idea. I think it was Steve Jobs, but like signal versus noise. And I feel like that's a
Mm,
great kind of my brain, but that's a great like example of signal versus noise and like what is actually important and what sort of noise around the actual like
yeah.
what is the actual feeling and who is the person I want to be and what steps, what things throughout my day will kind of move me towards that, and what's just
Yes.
kind of noise in the background and like anxiety or stress or just things that are really not productive to really just kind of achieving the life I want or
Mhm.
achieving kind of the feeling of who I am to be. You know what I mean?
Yes, no, I love signal versus noise. I worked with a like business coach when I was starting my own personal training business, and she would always talk about prioritizing needle moving actions, which I
Mhm.
think is kind of similar to what you're saying. And I would realize that like, I would be like so intimidated by the needle moving actions and procrastinate them and overthink them and over strategize and get too many people's opinions. And then I would just be like running around like this little like dust bunny doing all this fluffy work. And I would feel exhausted, but none of the needle moving actions got done. So it was like I would do all of the noise to avoid addressing the signal kind of thing. And that's not to say that now I'm always doing needle moving actions, but it's good to check in with being like, is this thing that I'm making such a big deal, like that big of a deal? Or is it just something that I've decided kind of arbitrarily is going to make me feel like accomplished for the day? And then,
100%.
you know,
I think I like that you said the needle versing the needle moves because it is true. I feel like we underestimate both in our coaching and also how we live our lives. Like our coaching, like sometimes you just want the clients, well, from the client side, they just want to do the coolest, craziest
Totally.
exercise. And you're like, honestly, like that's cool, but like that's really not doing much for you. So I think it's how do we kind of instill that signal versus noise both in our clients and
Yeah.
ourselves. Like these fundamental exercises, this
Mhm.
hinge and squat is actually going to progress you and strengthen you way more than doing that like crazy box jump twist ball kick thing. And
That's
like you could post it on Instagram, but like it's not going to help you very much in your daily life.
totally. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I get so much of that. We're just like, oh, and for the next program, could we do this thing that I saw on Instagram? And I'm like, I mean, we can do that, but that's so random. Like, it's not.
Honestly, in those cases, I'm just like, yeah, that's really cool. And then I just will, yeah, I'll be like, okay, this is what we're doing. Like, I obviously want the clients to feel like sometimes like you want them to feel like they're do something cool. So like you give them a little like
Right.
taste or like candy, we say, like a
Yes.
little treat.
Hmm.
But in the end, it's like you're the captain. You know that meme that's like, I'm
Yes.
the captain
Hmm.
now? You know, like you have
Hmm.
to, I think, really remind yourself that you are, because some clients are very pushy and very
Yeah.
aggressive. And you're just like, if you don't set that boundary up front, they're gonna kind of take advantage of you. It's like any kind of people. They need to respect you.
Yes. Yeah, you said a couple beats ago about how you at the beginning were kind of intimidated by some of your clients. I definitely had that too. Like I was treating them like they were the captain. Like I was
Yes.
paying them, you know? Um and but then it's also like I've vast majority of my clients have been like really wonderful, like totally aligned dream clients. And then I've had a couple who like what it would kind of like take for me to have them respect me, like the type of bad cop that they wanted, I just had to realize like that's not me as a coach, you know? And so if I can't coach this specific person who happened to cross my path, I can be okay with that. And they can leave and like I hope they find someone who works in the style that motivates them. Because, you know, I would sometimes try to get like all puffed up and be like, okay, I'm really gonna like really be tough today. And it's like, that's not really like who I am. So it's not going to work out in the long run. It's going to exhaust me. It's probably still not going to be really what they want. So,
No, it's very performative and like putting on a show every freaking day for like 12 months a year is exhausting. Like,
yeah.
so you want to find that balance and like the clients. And that's, I mean, honestly, for you being a newer coach, I feel like you already have so much information, so much self-awareness about who you are as a person. And also like just having that curiosity for wanting to be the best coach possible means that you're probably already doing phenomenally well because I think it takes some people a while to really anchor themselves in
Hmm.
who they are and what they need to do their best. I don't think
Hmm.
it's a selfish thing to know who you are and know what you need and put
Hmm.
up those boundaries to be the best version of yourself. But I think it takes everybody has their own journey and process through that. But the sooner we can kind of arrive there, the better I think you do in business and just in business in general, because you
Yeah.
are really able to advocate for your needs. And that's really what's going to give you the energy and the availability to be the best teacher and coach you can be.
Yeah.
So it's really great.
Yeah. I did this kettlebell certification about a year ago. It's called KBCU, Kettlebell Coach University. It's run by this guy, Hunter Krein, and his wife, Dr. Julia Morgan, helps out extensively with it as well. And I signed up for it when I was new to personal training because I had followed them online and I had been kettlebell training myself. And I just like really, I was like, these people are just like really cool and smart, and I want to like know more about what they're about. Having no awareness that most of the people who did this program were like way more seasoned as coaches than me. So I was like, the day one, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Like, I like should not be here. But it was great, and they welcomed me, and I learned so much. But I think being in that room I was in that program for like almost 6 months. Yeah, almost 6 months. They, with so many people who were so much more advanced than me and already had those kind of like boundaries and self-respect and like real like connection to like their kind of, you know, business values was so inspiring. And I just got so much advice about like all of that, just standing up for yourself and like figuring out who you are, what type of clients you want to work with or you work well with. And I look back and I'm like, that was such a like cheat code. Like I feel like just having those people who were so much more seasoned, be behaving in a way that was like so self-respecting, so professional. I was like, oh, I can like borrow some of that now, even though I'm at the I'm like tiny baby mini coach, you know. I can still act this way and like build my own kind of business and reputation with these values from the beginning. So, you know, I think the advice that I hear on your show and from anybody in the industry all the time is like just keep learning, and then also put yourself in rooms with people who are like, you know, further along than you. So I think that was a great like mistake that I made that turned out to serve me really well.
No, I think that's amazing that you said that. And you're completely right. I think any time that you are surrounded, like the people around you affect you, right? It's like your environment dictates kind of like how you're going to operate and who you're going to be,
Yeah.
and it starts to seep in. So I think being very specific about who you're surrounding yourself with, which everybody knows, people talk about this in
Yeah.
friends and da 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 da, whatever. Like it's very like known. But I think specifically when it comes to like mentorship and business and just
Mhm.
in our industry specifically, I think the more people you know, the more opportunities you're going to have. And it's kind of crazy how small it is. You know, like you know Cameron, I know Cameron. Like
Yeah.
there,
So crazy.
I know so many instructors like one person away. Or if I travel, I know people honestly in almost every country at this point now in terms of like somebody maybe in Pilates. And you
Whoa.
never know what that network will do for you. Like I'm yeah, one of the listeners, she listens to my podcast. I know her from New York. She lives in Stockholm now, and we're like talking about like her coming on the podcast too. And it's just like such a small world. And
Mhm.
really just, yeah, I love that it's like, I don't know, it's such a community. And I think people need to remember that and just not be afraid to be like the dumbest person in the room because it's the best place to be.
Yeah. For real, for real. And it's so especially like because we're, you know, we're this is physical work. Like we're working with our bodies. Like it's so humbling when you're like, "Oh, I physically like can't do what you're doing." Like or like we got to take like 200 pounds off the bar, you know? Like
Right.
it's really like the humbling effect is like it's so material, you know? So it's kind of like a slapstick in a way.
It is. And there's something so nice about the physicality of like being with other people and like especially moving with other people in your industry because
Yeah.
there's people who are going to be stronger and weaker than you
Mhm.
and from the dance perspective, right, I just like something about moving with a group of people I've always loved, just like
Yeah.
everybody's sweating together, you're suffering, but there's just like a very specific energy
Hmm.
that there's nothing like it and it just feels
Yeah.
amazing.
For real. For real. It really does. So,
And sort of wrapping up in terms of kind of where are you thinking and kind of like how are you shaping and looking at the next couple of years in terms of where you want your movement practices to go and where you kind of want your business to go?
mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, such a good question. I mean, my number one focus is my clients themselves. I say to myself, like, just get your reps in, just like spending time with your clients, with more bodies, just like educating myself, you know, in a classroom setting, but also like with the actual people themselves. So that's just
Mhm.
my number one priority. Like, I know I need to spend many more years just working with people. Um, and, you know, when I first got into personal training, um, despite having like dance and yoga as a big part of my life, I was thinking about this as just like gym culture, you know, only. And so all of the kind of like North Stars on my map were other like gym, like iron people. And as it's gone on, I'm realizing like how much yoga, dance, and even Pilates, even though it's relatively new for me, actually inform like my overall ethos as a trainer and like things that I think are really important in terms of like, I don't know, like body mobility, alignment, longevity, etc. And so I'm kind of just like letting that seep through me and like draw me to different people that maybe aren't like powerlifters or kettlebell people or whatever. Because I look at so many like successful business owners or studio owners, and it always is like the unique amalgamation of their own like interests that made them really successful, you know? And so I think I'm just kind of like following that. Like even just getting connected to you. Like a year ago, I would be like, oh, but that's like a Pilates person. Like that's not where I should be using my energy. And just being like, if you're drawn to it, there's probably a reason. Like, you know.
Yeah. Like following that kind of intuition and just,
Yes.
but I think we need that diversification right now more than ever because I think that's what's kind of going to set you apart in the long run is
Mm,
having that knowledge and just connection to other people.
yeah.
And
Or
yeah, keep
oh,
going. Sorry.
oh, I was just gonna say, like, I think like I've designed programs like obviously from like a with a scientific lens for sure, you know, kind of like basic fundamentals of movement patterns that you should be doing in a strength training kind of lens. But then I do so much like just like stretching and mobility work and like spatial awareness work and the people that are with me for the longest term, first of all, we have a connection, but also they like to move how I teach them to move, and that is reflective of the way that I move. So I kind of have this, newly percolating kind of opinion that like the best thing that I can do for my clients is continue to educate myself about all of the modalities that I like to move in and not like shut out yoga, not shut out dance, but be like, these are all huge influences to like how I feel like I keep my body healthy. And I don't need to just get so blinders on about like, oh, and now I'm teaching people how to lift weights, you know?
No, I that have that like fluidity in terms of what and
Hmm.
your availability of what you can offer these people because it's so much movement is just not just weightlifting. Movement is not just
Yeah.
Pilates. Movement is how
Right.
we go about our day
Yeah, exactly.
and how
Yeah.
we live through our lives and the
Mhm.
longevity and the house span and like can we run with our grandkids? I feel like that's honestly what
Yeah.
people care about in the long term more, not using a cane. Um,
Hmm.
but my last question is wrapping up would be what is one word you would describe yourself as a coach now, and one word to describe yourself of the coach of kind of who you want to be. So
Mm,
like kind of where you are now, and then I guess you can sort of see on the horizon like who you want, sort of where you're going.
okay. I would say as a coach now, I am very intimate. I like really prioritize my one-on-one connection with my clients and I'm very present with them and I like really, really love them. So, yeah, I think the intimacy is hugely important to me. And then in terms of the coach I want to be, um, okay, two words came to mind,
That's
which
fine. We can go with it.
it's like, okay, like regal and connected. And so those regal to me, not in a like diva princess way, but in a like grounded, peaceful leader type
Like a
of way.
stoicism, like a
Like a
stoic way.
stoicism,
Yeah.
yes, a stoic way, yeah. And then connected, I think the intimacy comes really naturally to me in a one-on-one context, but I really want to like feel like I'm a part of a community. And so I don't really know what that looks like. I hear coaches talk about this all the time though, because does end up being kind of siloed work. And so whether that's having a space where people come or connecting clients to each other or just continuing to connect with other coaches or finding like a partner in movement practices, um, that's where I would like to go.
Okay. Wait, so your words were regal and connected?
Yes.
Okay. I love that. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm honestly so amazed by you. This is such a fun conversation. And
Oh,
I think you're going to do amazing things because you already have so much self awareness and like so much light in terms of how you talk about the
oh.
work, which is like, no, it's rare. I mean, some people aren't so lit up when they talk about it. So it makes me like, it's very exciting to see that. And thank you for reaching out. This is really fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. You asked such great questions, and yeah, just so excited to be connected now.
Yay. Well, thank you so much to Emma. You can find her. We'll link all her links down
Mhm.
below and hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.